Well, welcome out there to my program once again. Always a pleasure to be here and always a pleasure to have you out there in the audience. I know you're watching. People tell me they watch the show, they enjoy it, and that's good. I'm glad we're getting some sort of interest in the program, and I'm also happy to have some quality guests that come on my show. We've got the panel show this time around, and well, we've got the usual suspects. Bob Camara and C.J. Ferry. Okay, don't shut the TV off. You have a lot of good things to say, and I'm going to tell you, when you listen to these two, you know you're getting the nitty-gritty of what's going on in the city of Fall River. A lot of things that people just are not aware of, and we're going to start off with some revelations that I just heard tonight that are disturbing. And that's about the Community Preservation Act. CJ, you've got the straight scoop on that Community Preservation Act. Well, give us a couple of examples that you gave me before the show began.
Well, you know, everyone voted for the CPA because they were drinking the Flanagan Kool-Aid at the time, and you know, Richard, you were highly against that whole CPA.
I mean, I could.
My colleague Chip was also very much against that because when you have more money to play with, they spend it on stupid stuff. Well, $192,000 for an air conditioner, and that was supposedly a matching grant for the Children's Museum.
Now, how does that's the interesting question. How does that dovetail into community preservation?
Well, you know, according to the law, community preservation is for 4 items. This one's going to have Chip's veins bulge out of his neck, but low-income housing, okay, just what Fall River needs, historic preservation of buildings, open spaces, parks, things like that. As a matter of fact, one of the veteran squares in the city got some money for new benches, and that's perfectly fine. And then outdoor recreation. Those are the 4 items.
Low-income housing.
Yes.
That community preservation.
Yes.
Fall River's been preserving low-income housing for the last 30 years.
Oh. Well, you know, they could have been a stretch. I mean, you know, maybe they're trying to cryogenically preserve the children because with a matching grant of almost $400,000 for air conditioning, maybe they're going to cryogenically freeze everybody. Well, I don't know, but you know, the whole premise is crazy. Look, we have a very, very poor city, and it's like any one of us out there. You know, if you're running on a tight budget, you don't have extra money to give to your friends to paint their houses and preserve their houses. And you know, this grant, as they said, people were drinking the Kool-Aid. It's neither the time nor the place to have something like this. It's money, more money out of a beleaguered taxpayer's pocket, and a taxpayer that's being just run into the ground. You know, I've been living on the same street for over 40 years, and very rarely see a house being sold. I mean, it's kind of a pretty stable neighborhood. There are 3 houses on my street, and it's a fairly short street. It's only 1 block long. And I see houses for people that have been living there for decades. They're up. Everybody's just leaving. You drive down Northeastern Avenue, you see some for sale signs all over the city. I mean, you know, when is it going to end? And you know, we are going to. We've talked about this before, CJ and I, and we're going to make everything we can to get this thing repealed after 5 years because it's just neither the time nor the place.
Now, the Community Preservation Act is in place for 5 years.
Correct.
And that was voted upon by the citizens of the city of Fall River.
By the nitwits known as the city voter.
Well, yeah. I mean, they, in a sense, asked for it, and they got it. And it was surprising because it's a tax.
But that's the whole thing. It was a small group of people who actually asked for it. It was the people like Al Lima and Jim Sewell who are historic preservation nuts. Okay? There's nothing in the city that can be knocked down. They actually created a new list of historical edifices, things in Fall River which should be preserved, because they need to create that for the CPA fund. They actually listed the old Fang Wang restaurant and the old Marquee restaurant, Marquee. Remember the old Marquee for the Marquee restaurant, the Big Dragon? That is in someone's garage somewhere.
And they want to preserve it.
And it's now listed as an item to be preserved.
Well,
I mean, are you serious? And $192,000 with a matching grant of $192,000 makes $384,000 for an air conditioning system for the old Superior Courthouse. Now, I spoke with 3 air conditioning companies out of Boston. I figured I'm going for the big bugs.
Yeah.
Okay? They said for $384,000, what are they making there? A meat deep freeze? I mean, he's like, there's no way it's going to cost $400,000 to air condition that building.
Well, that's the ire of people who are just scraping by, making the payments in regards to taxes on their property. You got the silly rainwater tax. That started the whole thing, it seems. From there, you know, they come up with all these other
Right.
exotic type taxes, pay as you throw. Now the apartment tax. People basically saying, when is it going to end? Bob, when is it going to end?
When we have to end it, and I think that the public was grossly misled. If we were in the city council during the debate for the CPA, and which we opposed, it was portrayed as, oh, don't worry, it's only $1 or $2, it's only this, it's only that. You know, if
It's only a cup of coffee.
it's only a cup of coffee. They got all these beautiful analogies that they create to make things look. It's just like the analogy recently used by our chief of staff when people actually had the audacity to say, why don't we cut some of these high salaries that we saw in the newspaper? And you know what his response to that was? I'm not cutting $5,000 from these hard-working administrative salaries when these freeloaders don't want to pay $5 more. Well, you know, $5 for the CPA, $5, you know, it's like the old adage, you know, a million here, a million there, and before you know it, you're talking real money. And guess what? The people in this city, you know, they don't grasp that 23% of the people in this city live below the poverty level. We have the second lowest income in the state. This city is only #1 in 2 categories: unemployment and crime, basically. That's the only thing that we're near the top at.
No,
and heroin use.
and low income.
And low-income housing, that comes under the CPA. But I mean, you know, it was, you know, I sat through that. It was, you know, if BS was bricks, the debate on the CPA could have built a chimney to the moon and had bricks left over.
Chimney to the moon.
Yeah, and now we're on to the chimney.
And now we're on to the chimney.
$100,000.
That was a good segue, wasn't it?
That came out of the CPA funds?
Yes.
Chimney.
For that King
For that
Philip
King
Mill?
Philip Mill chimney that we're going to knock down the building anyhow.
100,000, and what is the 100,000 for in regards to the
Well,
chimney?
initially they were saying it was to rebuild the chimney. Now it's to study the rebuilding of the chimney.
$100,000.
Right.
You could get someone over there, Leo's contracting company, he'd go over there and he'd show that there's a little gap on the bottom, apparently where, you know, the clean outdoors, the little chimneys?
Yeah.
It's not structurally unsound. It was built
To do that.
so they could clean the bottom of the chimney out.
But you know, even Dan Botello and I talked about this, and we said very clearly to the city council, give us $40,000, okay? We'll rent the wrecking ball. We'll knock it all down. We'll put it into the dumpsters and we'll get it out of there. Okay? And you know what we were told? Oh no, you got to put in all this stuff around the property to make sure there's no dust. And I'm like,
Well,
it's going to be dust.
There was a proposal that was aired in the front of the South End Neighborhood Association to blow the chimney up.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, like
blow it up.
Like they blow the casinos up in Las Vegas.
We'd have to evacuate the neighborhood first. I mean, where did these ideas come from, CJ?
Well, isn't it amazing, though, Richard, that only in government do we have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to study things before we do them? It's like, look, if you and I need something done in your house, I call 3 or 4 contractors and I go, give me an estimate. They give me an estimate for free because they want the job.
And they don't study too much. They look around
You know,
with a little pad and a pencil.
But now you look at them, it's like when they were talking about the Bank Street Armory study, it's like, really, you're going to spend all this money, a chimney study? You get a couple of companies that do that work, and it's a $100,000 job. They're going to be down there in less than a half a second with their pencils and papers, and they'll give you an estimate for free. But this is why government.
Is that the same thing about the $60,000 fence that surrounds the King Philip Mill?
Yeah, that didn't have gates until we mentioned it.
Until we
By the way,
mentioned it.
It had to go out. It had to go out an emergency bid or emergency.
There was no bid. It was given right.
The infamous security fence with no gates.
And no caps on the,
Right.
the posts.
And no gates, so the security fence had gaps in it. But, then when we mentioned
So
it,
what
they
did the
put
firemen
gates.
do if it catches fire? They go in there with acetylene torches, they cut through the fence?
But this is the whole funny part about it, because I asked you this earlier. I asked Chip this numerous times. Where is and I'm going to ask the viewers, where is the historic district in Fall River? Everybody knows it's set by ordinance, okay? It's up in the Highlands. It's Rock Street, it's Highland Avenue, it's all those streets that are connected to President Avenue. We know that. So why do we need to have a study on where to designate the historic district
So
in Fall
money
River?
was set aside for a study?
$10,000 for a study. So I
Someone
want
to
to
go
know.
out there with a tape measure or
It's
something?
very easy. I can do the study from here. Let's get me a list of all the political contributors and all the high-paying people, because if you look at where some of this money went, and you see, as we always say,
Follow the money.
follow the money, follow the political connections, and if you check who runs the Children's Museum, it will amaze you on that connection. So again, government is a necessary evil, and as Milton
And they
Friedman
prove it every day.
and as Milton Friedman once said, and one of my favorite quotes is, if you gave the government the Sahara Desert, we'd run out of sand in 5 years.
It's the truth. If you want to screw up anything, give it to the government to handle. And and you look at things. And I saw today a statement, which is very true. The U.S. government, the U.S. Food
Drug Administration?
well, no, the U.S. Department of Agriculture funds the food stamp program, the SNAP program now. Okay, in order so that people can eat. So we give them food stamps to eat. But the Department of the Interior says, do not feed the animals because they'll become dependent upon you feeding them. But we give them food stamps.
On a food stamp program, so don't give it to the,
But this is what we do.
Why are Cheetos and potato chips on that list, though?
Yeah, I mean,
It is a food source.
yeah, this is just,
so how is the charter moving along? They got the necessary signatures.
yes, they did.
So come fall, there'll be people running, they're running now, I guess, they're getting the
Yeah,
signatures.
you have 7 candidates right now running for charter commission.
How many are going to be on a charter?
Is that
You need
counting
9.
Mr. Mioza, who's now said he's not gonna.
No, that's actually that does list Mr. Mioza in the
So there's
candidates
only
list.
6 actually now.
So there's
Okay, so
actually
he's not
6.
going to
No, he's
run for
not.
charter
According to
commission?
what he said, he's not running for city council or
Charter commission. So that's it for,
Because of the acrimony, that happened and all of that. And, I have to laugh about that
well,
comment. but
he's isn't he on the,
Solid Waste Task Force.
so he'll be off that too?
No, that's up till the end of his term.
Oh,
And-
no, yeah, that'll be the end of the
Yeah.
end
what
of
an
the year.
appropriate name. Solid waste.
Solid waste.
But it's interesting to see this because there's 7 candidates right now still listed. We won't know until after September who the candidates are actually going to be. But if they don't get 9 candidates, they get appointed by the mayor.
Does the mayor have any appointments anyway?
No.
So in other words, if there are 9, that'll be it. If there isn't, the mayor will fill in
Yes.
Yeah.
deficit. Okay, that's
so the one thing
interesting.
they wanted to avoid doing, which was having mayoral appointments to change the charter, they may end up having to do. And the problem with that is
Isn't that counterproductive in a
Yes.
sense?
Yeah.
I mean, the idea to change the charter anyway with this charter is to reduce the power that the mayor has, apparently.
well, not necessarily just that. I mean,
No, I'm not
But-
just that, but then if there is
I have to-
that
I
are not
have-
on the commission,
Right.
he would be appointing.
Yeah, it's kind of a conflict of interest to allow him to put anybody on.
exactly.
Sure,
But
yeah.
the thing is that this whole charter process started 3 years ago. It took them 3 years to get 7,000 signatures. Okay? It took Chip and I, with a group of 20 people, 20 days to get 5,500 signatures.
All right.
And when they were offered that opportunity, they said no because it was too negative. But when the rubber hit the road and it looked like they were going to fail with 4,000 signatures and they had nowhere else to get them, they went to the people that we had solicited for signature gathering. They went to them because they were good at getting signatures to get the signatures they needed. And then they put it over the top.
Well,
And this is where you get into that point of, politics makes strange bedfellows. Now, with this charter, from what I understand, one of the people running for commissioner, who's been very active in this whole campaign, only wants to get one thing to change initially. Because if they put too much out there, they figure that people just vote it all down, because it's an all or nothing issue. And they want the charter reviewed every 5 or 10 years, something along that line.
yeah, they mention that.
And, I think that is a good idea. But to only start this whole process to change one item in the charter,
Well, it will depend on the commission and what
Right.
Matter of fact, I think the voters have to vote if they want any change at all. So is that...
right, it's an
that's-
all or nothing vote.
Right, so if it's no change, then that's the end.
Right.
If it's changed, then the commission will become active. Am I
Right.
correct?
Yeah.
All right. So, Charter Commission, and what's a little confusing is that people out there seem to not understand that the Charter Commission is separate and apart from the election of the City Council, School Committee, and people seem to not realize that this is election year for the mayor's office. Confusing enough?
Well, I think, I'm betting the mayor's hoping it's confusing enough, because he doesn't have very high favorability poll numbers from what the people we've been talking to and the polls we've been looking at. His ratings are down in the basement. I mean,
Pay as you throw?
Yeah, well.
Well,
yeah,
I pay as you throw is rating
yeah,
higher than the mayor.
Well, he's kind of like, he's pulling a Bob Correa 10.0.
Yeah.
That's, we know what happened with Mayor Correa.
Didn't make the preliminary.
Yeah,
That
didn't
was
even make the
astounding.
preliminaries.
And
Astounding.
if a third candidate does step out at the last minute, and the last minute is the end of July,
Yeah.
just so people know, this man could be
Bounced at the preliminary?
bounced in September. And
Anybody out there that you know of that might...
I'm vetting a couple of different people. I've been talking with them. Chip and I have been talking back and forth about it, and we've actually said, maybe this person should run for a different office. And it's very difficult. And one of the biggest problems is with some very high-ranking people is they don't want the headache. They
Well-
don't want the headache.
the city is not moving along, you might say, as a
and-
pleasure boat.
Exactly, and
It's
we're
been a
looking
rough
at
seas.
we're looking at a new dynamic too, because if you look at the city council race, you have Jaisal Correa running for mayor. That's one seat open. You
Open,
have
yeah.
you have
Mike Mioza dropped
Mike
out.
Mioza dropping out. That's two. And even though now we have Steve Long who backfilled, technically we have Paul De Silva's seat. So we have three incumbents that are going to have basically new faces replacing them in those seats. I mean, Long may have a little bit, but he's technically not being reelected. And there is a very strong...
And he's not an incumbent. in
No,
a sense,
exactly. He's
in a
not an
true
incumbent.
sense.
So we have three open seats technically, and there's a very strong possibility from what we're hearing that Dan Rigo will not run,
Dan Rigo.
because he has not pulled papers to our knowledge as of yet. So it's a very, very good possibility that we're going to have a minimum of 4 brand new councilors. So anybody who's elected mayor is going to be working with basically a rookie city council.
Which could be a good thing or a bad thing.
Could be a good, but that makes it, that makes it
But
difficult.
hopefully they don't bring in the bad habits that this council has had for a number of years. Like, for instance, not listening to citizens, not reading reports. And this comes directly from the city council president.
Well,
we don't listen, we don't read the reports.
They
we don't
better
do it.
take heed to what's going on at the city council meetings.
This
because
isn't
the
only
people are not
happening-
going to take it anymore.
No,
so
but
to
this
speak.
isn't only happening in Fall River. This is a national thing now. People are fed up. The electorate is changing. And I think Jefferson right now is about ready to sit up in his grave and say, yes, I told you, revolt. Because it's time for rebellion. It really is.
Well,
And
when you talk about rebellion, that comes under the First Amendment
Of the rebels.
petition to redress.
Yeah.
That's right.
And based on the Magna Carta of 1215, when the noblemen presented it to the king as part of the process, they said, if you don't listen to us when we present something to you in the form of a petition, then we have the right to rebel. Well, they were talking about something a little different.
Yeah, they were talking about real rebellion. Yeah.
But, I mean, the recall was a rebellion, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
It was.
It took the head of the city right out of his position.
That was the last time we heard "Let 'em eat cake."
But people are talking about a second rebellion
That's right. And I think that's
in
what
the form of not voting for the present mayor. Are you hearing something
Oh
like
yeah.
that?
Oh, well,
Yeah.
everywhere.
He has an approval rating of about 22% of the voters.
You only get 3 out
And
of 10
they're all
votes.
relatives.
Well, you only get 3 out of 10 votes, so
Yeah.
Yeah, and
that
that's the whole
wasn't
thing.
off to a good start.
Right.
No.
He only had a 37% win in the recall of 16,000 voters.
Yeah.
So when you're looking at that, I mean, and 16,000 was a good year. That was a good election cycle for us. I think that was even better than our general election.
That was, yeah. I believe it
So
was.
you have to see the change that's coming. And the fact that the people of Fall River are now going to start listening, and they're going to start causing you to listen, or they're going to start saying, you know what, this isn't a threat anymore. I'm going to give you 90 days in office. If you don't do what I tell you to do in 90 days, on day 91, I am getting the petition to recall you, and you will be gone.
Well-
and honestly, the city no longer has a leg to stand on saying, oh, we can't do this, because now we know how to do it.
Well, yeah, there's proof, to say the least. It was amazing that you collected that many signatures, and you were right on the money in the sense that the voters really wanted a change.
And I'll tell you, I think that the level is even greater now.
Yes.
I see. I mean, of course, there's always a carryover effect, and you're buoyed by
You
the
think
success.
the fervor-
but
the
I think
fervor
the
of
fervor
dissent?
has not only continued, but now because these people, we engage so many people. Remember that, like I said, look at the turnout we got. Look at the number of voters. We took a mayor that was elected less than a year before.
With
or
70% of the vote.
70% of the vote, and we threw them out with 70%. We made a 180-degree shift, and we threw them out with the incredible 70-30 margin. And now you look at that, and people were, the people were happy. They were thrilled. And what do we get? We get a city council that does the same old, and a mayor that basically does exactly the same thing and adds more insult to injury. And I think today that people are even more upset, they're more angry, because now, besides the purple bag mantra, we have the trash fee to add on. We've got the icing on the cake, and also all these other fees and this insensitivity to, there seems to be
Well, then,
a latent
like you just-
insensitivity to poor people.
Right, because like you talked about before, the CPA Act,
Yeah.
giving money, a lot of money, to people who have, in a sense, a lot of money, or to projects that don't deserve to be funded. The CPA, Community Preservation Act, the first glance at it, the thought would be, well, that would be money used maybe for city properties that were, of a historic value, but not to embellish private property. That doesn't make a lot of sense at all.
No.
If someone buys an historic building, it's their problem.
Yeah.
But according to the CPA, it's not. And that's the problem.
And it's politics, and you look at who they're connected to.
Right.
But you look at the way the government, one of my favorites, the Massachusetts State Constitution, Part 1, Article 5, they're at all times agents, our agents, and answerable to us, whether they're executive, legislative, or judicial. And the fact is, if you watch the council meetings about this issue, you look at literally 95% of the people up there told those people they didn't want this trash fee. They totally ignored them. It was like you're not even there, and then you get Steve Long reading statistics like it's a revelation. They had this report, and God knows how long.
November 18th, 2014.
And they're talking about statistics that I have been given the council for 2 years. It's right out of the United States Census Bureau. He's saying, well, 23% of the, and in ironically, my citizen's input before he read it I gave half of those statistics. It's 23.3 according to the United States Census Bureau. There's also other statistics that I had, but I mean, this is like a big revelation. There are poor people in Fall River.
Oh, I'm shocked.
I mean, what a revelation.
I'm shocked.
You know, but the hell with the poor people. We tax them anyway.
Right, but I
Who
think
cares?
the biggest revelation came the next day on WSAR when Joe Camara went on with Barry Richards and says, "We get so many reports, we don't read them. We don't read them. I send them memorandums of law all the time. I get some of them from you, Richard, and I send them to them. They don't read them because they don't make a decision based on the law. They make a decision on who the idiot is on the other side of the table saying this is what it is, and it's a lie. It's a lie. And whenever they approve things, you have to say, why? Why? Because you, the people of Fall River, have decided that these nitwits who serve as city councilors are the best things since sliced bread. Because Leo Pelletier gives you a chow mein sandwich. And, oh, well, Linda's a nice woman, and this one's a nice guy. You know what? That's not the way it is. If they're not doing what's right, if they're not doing what's legal, we have to hold them accountable. And we don't do that.
I think you're going to see that. I think you're going to see a change. I think there's an attitude
I
change.
think there's a rebellion underway.
I think there's a rebellion afoot, and the reality is that, look, you know, we can say whatever we want here, but we can't absolve ourselves because we are the government. And if we have a bad government, it's our fault.
That's right.
I mean, I vote for who I think will do the job. It's nothing personal. If my best friend was the worst mechanic on the planet, I would probably have a burger with him and a beer, but I'm not going to bring my car to him. And it's the same thing with the council. I don't care how nice anybody is. I want somebody in here that's going to listen and do the business of the city of Fall River and protect the taxpayer.
Okay, we're finishing down the program. As far as the city council race, do you have any idea how many have taken out papers?
32.
32. That is a huge
Yeah.
number.
That's right. And it's not finished yet. There may be a few more.
There's still a few more. And the thing is,
That could be anybody's
right.
race with
Well,
32.
the top three candidates right now, and out of, we're saying a potential 4, but out of the top 3 right now that keep coming up all the time are Richard Cabaceres, Cliff Pont, and Joshua Font. Those are the 3 that keep coming up. They seem to be having a presence in the community. When you ask somebody running for city council outside of the incumbents, they can name those 3 people. Those are good indicators that those are people that probably have a good possibility.
Okay,
Well, I don't
gentlemen.
know if that's true because I don't know what poll you're getting, but Richard Cabaceres came out in favor of everything that's been done by the present city council, and I think somebody better redo the polls.
Well, no, that's not a poll. That's not a poll. That's name recognition.
Well, I mean, name recognition sometimes is a negative.
Yeah, and again, if you want
That's
the
not a
same,
positive factor
That's
in getting
throwing a
elected.
dice.
yeah, that's
Okay.
throwing the dice. But if you want the same old,
gentlemen,
elect Richard Cabaceres.
Thank you. Very interesting program. A lot of good issues, a lot of good thoughts, and
I like the Magna Carta, Richard.
12:15. Remember, if the king doesn't listen, we have a right to rebel. Remember that. So, thank you for watching.
The SWAT team is forming outside the door.
And keep your pitchforks and chains and everything else home for a while.
Up the rebels.
We're in enough trouble. You got to make it worse for us, huh?
Hey, it's out there. The sentiment is tough out there. I
Oh,
was
it
out
is,
there
it is.
yesterday, and
Yeah, it is.
I was collecting some signatures, and all I got was tear the roof off, tear the building down. People are wild.
You can't go anywhere. When I'm walking my dog, I'm in a market, I'm in a restaurant. No matter where I am, people are walking up and saying, this is nuts.
It is. It's absolutely crazy. And